Hello everyone, this is Kevin Alexander with Alta Vista Technology. We're going to take a look at 1099 processing in Business Central, including the regulatory 1099 format changes for 2020. With every new year, processing 1099 statements is a necessary task for accounting teams. As a refresher, we're going to look at setup, processing, and reporting of 1099 information. To set up a 1099 vendor, let's first go into our vendor list and let's select the vendor that we'll be setting up as our 1099 vendor. We'll be using Fabricam. So let's go down to the Payments Fast tab and we'll look at the IRS 1099 codes. So here in Payments, there's really only three pieces of information that are needed to set up on a vendor in order for 1099 processing. So first is the IRS 1099 code. And if we look at the drop down here, we'll see here are all the 1099, IRS 1099 codes to select from. And we'll be leaving it on miscellaneous 7 here, which is that non-employer compensation. Now, a couple other fields of note. Here you can check the federal ID number, right? So we want to make sure that you've got that 9-digit federal ID number here identified, as well as the tax identification type. So whether it happens to be a legal entity or a natural person. Now, with these codes, we may want to look at our vendors and make sure that they're all coded right, have federal ID numbers identified, and that they've got the correct tax identification types. So there's a couple tricks to being able to do that here within inside of Business Central. And we're going to go back over here to our vendor list. And you may be aware that you can personalize this list. However, if we go into personalization, what you're going to note here is that some of these key fields that we were just speaking about aren't available for me to add in the list. So there's a couple ways that we can go ahead and be able to kind of audit ourselves, not being able to see these fields on the screen here. So the first is we can come over here and we can create a filtered list. So you can do that a couple ways. We'll just come over here to the filter pane. And on the left-hand side here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a couple filters. And the first one is we can come down here and we can find our 1099, IRS 1099 code. And so let's select that. And I want to look for everything that is that miscellaneous 7. So those happen to be the ones that I'm processing here. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. You can see my list filtered down to just this one vendor. That's all I have as a 1099 vendor. The other is I may also, right, want to find those vendors that don't have a federal ID set for them. And I can do that by adding another filter here to the list. We'll do that by selecting federal ID number. And I can look for vendors that don't have a federal ID number for looking for blank or null fields. And you can do that by doing single quotes. So quote, quote. So this is single quotes. And what I just did was ask Business Central to show me all of my vendors that have an IRS 1099 code of miscellaneous 7 and no federal ID number. You can see I don't have any here in the list. So we're all good here. And if I liked this list, right, and I want to use this over and over again, you can come up here and click Save, right, and give this a name. We'll say vendor 1099 check. And that's what I'll just call my list here. And so you can use that particular list there. So that's one way of checking your vendors. The other way is you can take advantage of, under Page, you can do an edit in Excel. So I can click on Edit in Excel, and it's going to go ahead here and open up my entire vendor list, and it's going to show me just about every field that's available here. And then In Excel here, we could go ahead and filter and sort for those particular fields. So we can come over and identify here. So you can see here my federal ID number. There's my 1099 type, right? And I can make sure that these are all set properly. So it's a good way to kind of do a check and a mass edit here, and you can do it right in Excel. And so if there's a change here, and you notice I had this federal ID number of 987123654, but let's say that number should have been 321654789. Instead, I can make that change, and we can come here and do publish, right? So I can make some changes right inside the list, and it's going to go and update my data for me back in Business Central. And so coming back into Business Central now and using that one vendor Fabricam as the example, we can come down here, and there is that updated federal ID number. Okay, so I could have done the same thing for the IRS codes as well. So a couple different ways for you to kind of check your data on your vendors before you get to the point of processing. Now, when you're entering transactions for the vendor, the IRS code will automatically be added to the transaction under the shipping and fast payment tabs. So this code can be overwritten if you like to a different 1099 code, or removed for the transaction altogether. So what does that look like, right? When we go do that. So let's go ahead and open up our. We'll go do a purchase invoice, and this would also hold true. What I'm showing you for if it was a credit memo as well. So we'll open up purchase invoices, and just as an example, we'll open up Fabricam here, and what it's using is that particular 1099 code. So where is that set up? Let's set up right here under the shipping and payment, and that would fill in automatically, right, for that vendor. So you can see that I have a record here, purchase invoice for this vendor where this 1099 code was not entered on the purchase invoice, right? And we'll talk about how you can handle these kind of corrections after the fact. So as we do transactions, we'll want to double check to make sure this 1099 code is filled in. So while we were doing a brand new purchase invoice for Fabricam, right? What we'll see here, and we'll enter them in, is if we come down here, you'll see that 1099 code, right, is entered automatically for us. The other item of note here as well, on the line items, now we'll do a purchase invoice for a resource. So let's say, we'll just say Mark here, and let's say, 100 hours of Mark's time was used. I might want to see at the line level whether this is IRS 1099 liable, right? And I don't see that field here. So in personalization, right, I can come here, go to personalize, and I want to add that field in there permanently. So let's go and add the field up here and highlight that section here. And if we scroll down, I believe it's near the bottom of the list. There it is, this IRS 1099 liable. I'm going to take that and I'm going to drop it right on the form, wherever you like. I'm going to put it right here front and center for us, so we'll click done. So not that this happens frequently, but I could have multiple lines and one actually might be 1099 liable and the other one not. So I could actually unselect this here if I want. So you can do that on the transaction. So once the transaction is posted within the vendor ledger entries, you'll find the IRS 1099 code and amount will be automatically populated once the transaction has been paid. So the total will be accounted for in the 1099 total. So of note here that not only just posting the purchase invoice needs to occur, but also paying it in order for it to show up in the 1099 totals for this particular vendor. So let's go into the vendor ledger entries and take a look at what that looks like here. So we'll go ahead and I'll select Fabricam. And here we want to go into related and history. And so let's look at ledger entries to begin with. So inside ledger entries, we're going to see all the activity, right, for this particular vendor. And I'm going to scroll over here to the right. And way over here, you can see, hey, I've got these two entries here, right, for my vendor with this miscellaneous 7 and the amount. So you see both the invoice and the payment here is what you're seeing. And so in order for these to be picked up in the totals for this vendor, it must be first invoiced, right, with the correct 1099 code and paid. So a couple other ways to look at some of that information for this vendor is if we come back here to the vendor card under related, we can under history we can look at 1099 statistics, and in here you can see here for the year, right? This particular year, I can see that I've got this total of here for that vendor. Now, I may have started the year or um, when I entered this particular vendor and had not provided these 1099 codes for the vendor. Therefore, as I was processing throughout the year, I'm missing those transactions being tagged with the 1099 code. But we can go back in and we can make some corrections after the fact to update this vendor. So if we go back real quick, just as a refresher, and we look at the history and 1099 statistics, let's just note this $8,000 $8,724.10 1099 amount, and let's go make some corrections and see how that is updated for us. Go back into vendor ledger entries. So we go to related, and you go to history and ledger entries. And in ledger entries now, I've got all these entries that have been occurring all year, right? And those two at the top are the only ones, right, where I actually had that right the right code on it. And so I want to go back and make some changes from back earlier in the year. So let's pick on, I need a payment or an invoice and a payment. So let's just look at the very first one of the year here. I want to slide over here. We should have amount, so 1433.86, right? That's our amount. So I want to do a couple things here. So before I forget the amount, let's just put that in so I can actually enter in the 1099 amount, and then I can come to the 1099 code and we can update that. And we can do that right here, right in the ledger entries. And I'll need to do the same for the payment. And so I don't need the amount there, the 1099 amount. I just need to mark it that it has been paid, right? And tagged accordingly. So that's all I needed to do. And if we come back out and we go back to this vendor, we go related here and back into our history and 1099 statistics, you'll see there's that amount updated for us. So very simple, right? To go back and kind of check our work and make changes need be. And just like we did with the vendor records where we exported them to Excel for editing, you can do the same here, right? So we can come back to history and ledger entries, and once you're inside of ledger entries, you can do the same thing here, and you can say edit in Excel, right? And it will take all that information out to Excel for us, and then I could simply go in and mark the correct, put the correct 1099 code on the entries that need them, and process those, or republish those back to the system. So very simple to make those corrections. Now, if I wanted to view the amounts, I could use the vendor 1099 information report. There's a couple different ways that you can run that. I can run it from the list here, or I can run it directly inside of a vendor card. So from the list, uh, over here under the ellipse, we'll find reports and reports in general. And under that, we'll find vendor 1099 information. And we select that. I can run it for a specific vendor here. For date range, we'll just run this 1/1/20 through 12/31/20, and we can just go ahead and run a preview for that. And if we had obviously multiple vendors, we would see that here, and so we can see the entries and take a look at each of those vendors, right, and kind of audit those 1099s before we go ahead and process those. So to do that processing of those, you can simply come back to the 1099 reports. So if we wanted to print the 1099s, we could either do that here from the list, right? Or again from one of the vendor cards. So on the list, I can come back in reports in general, and you can see down here, I've got the three different 1099s that I could run, right? Actually, four now, right? The dividend, interest, miscellaneous, and here's the new NEC for 2020. And so I want to take a minute here in a moment after we do this to go ahead and see how we make those changes in the system. But for now, let's just click the vendor 1099 miss. And you would load your pre-printed forms in, and you can run a test print. So you can do these to test if you like, right? So we don't really I might want to take a look at what these look like, or I'm going to just do a preview. And again, it should just take a moment. We just got the one here, so I can see, well, here's that information being printed on those pre-printed forms that you would have acquired and loaded into your printer to print your 1099s. Okay. So let's look at the regulatory changes for 2020. And it's very straightforward to update Business Central to handle that. And so I'm going to come up here, and we're going to look for 1099 form boxes. Okay, so the form boxes are the different, each of the different 1099 types. Okay, so these are all the ones that are selected in the system. It actually even loads in, right, the minimum reportable values and such. And you've noticed if we come down in our list now, a couple things to note. We don't see the new NEC, and there's been some changes to some of the miscellaneous as of note, just because we'll be able to see the change here in a moment. This Miss 14 where it says gross proceeds paid to an attorney, we're going to see the updates made to this one as well. So how do we get those changes applied to our Business Central environment? And it's very simple. We come up the process and we say update form boxes, right? And this dialog box is normal. All this is letting us know is that it's actually queuing up a job to go get the latest update and apply it to your Business Central. So I'll click OK. There's no other changes that need to be made here. You can see that it's going to run as soon as possible here. So the earliest start date and time. And what we're going to do next is we're going to come back into process. You can see the status here says on hold, and all we're going to do is select restart. Okay, and we're going to pause for just a moment, and I'll come right back because it just takes a second. It could take up to 5 minutes or so for this update to be applied to your system. So back here, my 1099 form boxes, my update has been applied. And if I scroll back down, you see here, there's NECO1, non-employee compensation has been added with the correct amount. We can see that I used this Miss 14, right, as an example. Now it's been updated to non-qualified deferred compensation, right? And if we come in, we can see miscellaneous 7 now, payer made direct sales, right? So these have all been updated for us. So that's step 1, right? Step 2 is, well, Kevin, what happened to all of my vendors that had been marked as miscellaneous 7? Now what? Well, those have all been updated as part of this process. So we can come and go in and select Fabricam again. And if I come down here, you can see here it is. That Miss 7 now is now an NECO1, right? So this has been updated for me. And let's go back into history. Remember our ledger entries. And in our ledger entries, let's go ahead and scroll over here. And we can see now that they've all been updated, and we're ready now to go and run our audit 1099 audit reports for the NECO1 1099 code and process or print our 1099s like we have in the past. I hope you found this video useful. We'll see you again soon with another Business Central video. In the meantime, please contact us if you'd like to learn more about Business Central. If you liked the video, please hit that thumbs up. And if it's your first time with us, click that subscribe button to stay current on our content. And as always, thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next